Okay, so good evening, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for attending our Buddhism Basics class and book study. We have been reading Amrita of Eloquence. This is the biography of the founder of KTC Jacksonville, Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche, and we're about 3/4 of the way through the book. But the second Tuesday of every month, our spiritual director, Lama Losang, joins us this evening to do a teaching, to answer your questions, and help us understand the practice that we do here of Buddha Shakyamuni, and the practice of compassion and loving kindness, and the traditions of silent sitting meditation, and all the different facets of Tibetan Buddhist practice. So Lama, thank you. It's a pleasure to have you here. We're happy to have you here every Tuesday. We've got several people here in person and several people online with us tonight. And I know we've submitted a few questions to you to get the teaching rolling. But first of all, do you have any thing for us to begin with tonight?
No, I will begin with first refuge and raising bodhicitta when we're ready to begin.
Okay. And that will be first, if you have, this would be the Chenrezi text. I know everyone probably has the Medicine Buddha text, or if you remember the, I will share it here on the screen here for those that are attending remotely.
So before we begin most practices, we first cultivate our loving kindness and compassion and our bodhicitta for the benefit of all beings. We listen and contemplate and practice. This is the practice lineage. So we wish to use this practice for the dual purpose of ourselves so that we can attain a Buddhahood, but also for all suffering beings. So we begin with first the refuge and raising bodhicitta. So I'll do it twice in the Tibetan and once in the English. We'll chant it, and then I'll just say a prayer. So, Anje Chudang Soki Chok Nam La Jangju Badu Dakni Chap Suchi Dagi Jin Sok Chi Pe So Nam Gi Androla Penchir Sanjay Drupar Shok Sanjay Chudang Soki Chok Nam La Jangju Padu Dakni Japsuchi Dagi Jinsok Jipe Sonamgi Adrola Penchir Sanjay Drupar Shok. Until I reach enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, in the Dharma, and the Noble Sangha. Through the merit of accomplishing the 6 perfections, may I achieve awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. Kadin Sawe Lama Rinpoche, Dakichiwo Pede Denjgla, Kadin Chempo Gone Jesumte, Kusum Duji Nudup Sal Duso. So good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here, for those of you who are in person at the center, and for those of you online. Great good fortune that we can be together. So yes, there were a couple of questions that I understand came up as a result of your readings. I was asked to talk a little bit about one of the questions is, can one have more than one guru? And the second is, there was talk about supernormal powers. What are supernormal powers? So we can discuss those topics. But if you have questions as we go, don't hesitate to ask them. You can either raise your hand or put them in the chat. Mike will monitor the chat to uh, communicate those questions to me. And as we go, there may be more questions you have, and this is the opportunity to ask those questions, whether it's about your personal practice or things that you have been considering or wondering about. This is the opportunity to ask them. And if there's time, I will also talk about what's happening here in Gainesville. You got a little preview from Mike mentioning that Lama Karma from KTD is going to be in Gainesville, and we are having the topic of Chenrezig. So most of you are familiar with Chenrezig. It's the most popular practice that we do, and all of the centers do the Chenrezig practice, the Bodhisattva of loving kindness and compassion. And the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum, which is a very powerful mantra that's used for many different things. And we can talk a little bit about that too. The potency and power and meaning of that six-syllable mantra Om Mani Padme Hum. So we'll start with the questions that I have here. And so the first one, can one have more than one guru? And the answer to that is yes. In the Tibetan tradition, and specifically, we're talking about the Karmakagya tradition, having multiple gurus is not only permitted, but is the historical norm. We have many teachers and we study with many teachers. The Dalai Lama has said about himself, he lists roughly 25 teachers on his refuge tree, though he identifies two as his real root gurus. And we'll talk about what the difference is between a guru and a root guru. And the tradition explicitly holds that receiving teachings from many masters and placing them all in one's refuge tree is a sign of gratitude. It's not the disloyalty to one or the other. It is simply a sign of gratitude, appreciation, and devotion for what you've been taught. The key distinction between a general guru, a teacher, that's what the word guru means. That's the Sanskrit. The word lama is the Tibetan word for guru. And a root guru, or Sawe Lama in the Tibetan, is one who has really opened the door to your realization. So a general guru is anyone from whom you receive Dharma teachings, transmissions or empowerments, and reading the true Dharma, giving explanations, pith instructions, or performing mandala rites are all traditionally counted as forms of guru activity. And when a guru comes to the centers, they will teach, of course, maybe do empowerments or reading transmissions. And you can have a number of these. The root guru is defined differently by lineage, in Kagyu especially. The root guru is someone who actually caused you to cognize or recognize the nature of your own mind it may be in an intellectual way at first. In other words, the one who gave you the pointing out instructions for Mahamudra. Mahamudra is the supreme practice, the quintessential jewel of our Karmakagya lineage. And whoever introduces you to your own mind, the primordial state, is considered your root guru or Sawe Lama. And because that recognition can happen through more than one teacher over a lifetime, it's entirely possible to have several, even root gurus. So if you've received or wish to receive oral instructions from several masters, then those masters also can become a root guru to you. So if people received oral instructions from many masters, they would also have many root gurus. But generally, there is one that you feel closest to and have trust in and faith in, and you will consider only one of them as your guru. The one whose instruction actually brought you to realization. So until that point, there's no problem in relying on multiple teachers, as long as you're not indiscriminately hopping around between unrelated lineages, for example, without proper investigation. It is considered imperative that you continue to practice within your lineage. So in the Karmakaju lineage, we would study, and when we invite teachers, they are within our lineage. Because if you dabble in different lineages, there can be confounding teachings to what you know, and it can be confusing and frustrating, actually. And more than that, it can lead to wrong understanding and confusion. So, any question about that? About having more than one group?
Go ahead.
I have a somewhat similar question to it that I was thinking about. Is there in the Tibetan tradition, I know you can have the ordained monks and then the lay people. Is there any like middle person as well, if you want to be more advanced than a lay person, but not necessarily completely take any monastic vows, but try to just a middle path between both of those?
Well, they need to be recognized as having a certain level of realization themselves, or it's the blind leading the blind. So you have to do your due diligence, and we'll talk a little bit about the importance of that teacher-student relationship. Yes, you can study with other people, but you want to get the clearest understanding of what's being taught. And there's a lot of things being taught about karma and emptiness and a variety of things. And not everyone really is well versed in that or has had the direct experience of these things. So the important part for ourselves is the direct experience of the nature of our mind. And does that person have that? Can they really teach from a level of experience? So that's the only thing I would caution you about.
Lama, I think there was a slight misunderstanding, if I'm correct on this. We have our lay practitioners and then we have our monastics, but we also have sort of this middle ground, I think is what Jameson was looking for. Like we have our lamas who go through the 3-year retreat, who are lay lamas. They're not just lay practitioners, but they're not monastics either. Is that what you're after?
If they have gone through a 3-year retreat and have been given permission to teach by their guru, then they are worthy teachers in that regard. Again, the word lama means teacher, and if they have that title, they can teach. Yeah.
So but we still have things like the lay vows if you'd like to deepen your practice without doing 3-year retreat, right, Lama? Would that be-
Yes, the vows are very important to your practice, to deepen your practice and to keep those vows that you take really facilitate you know clarity and are a catalyst for your movement on the path to realization. So yes, and those vows are given by one of the teachers, and that is one of the things that teachers do. They pass those vows to you in a very formal way. So that is a catalyst for your growth. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So the second part of that was what are supernormal powers? So this is higher knowledge, and there are generally, we say, 6 capacities said to arise from deep meditative concentration. So these are siddhis, and you don't have to be Buddhist to have these siddhis, but they do require some um, deep meditative concentration for them to arise. So sometimes we talk about higher powers, and you'll see things like flying. There's walking through solid objects. There's walking on water. There's multiplying one's body to be in different places. There's similar feats, like these that are considered extraordinary, but they are called siddhis, and it doesn't mean enlightenment. It means that you have created a particular quality in your practice that has manifested in particular characteristics or powers. And these are considered supernormal, we would say. We don't see too many people flying around or walking through walls and things like that. That is one. I say there's six. The second is called the divine ear, or clairaudience, hearing sounds beyond ordinary range, or the divine ear. And the third would be mind reading. So this is the siddhi of direct knowledge of others' thoughts. And this manifests along we say there are 10 bhumis or levels for the bodhisattva, and there are different powers that arise as one progresses along that path, such as what we're talking about, divine ear, mind reading. And you may have done that too. You may feel like, you can know what another person's thinking. You may have had that capacity. That comes and goes. We can't really direct it. We just get that experience sometimes. And recollection of past lives. That is considered another siddhi, one's own former existences. As you grow along the path, you also know the past lives of other beings as well. A Buddha knows those things, but again, we'll come to that. A Buddha's supernormal powers supersedes any of these supernormal powers that anybody can really attain if they have the absorption in samadhi that really deepens their realization. And so there's those higher powers that we mentioned. There's divine ear, there's mind reading, there's a recollection of past lives, there's divine eye. That is seeing beings, deaths, and karmic causes behind them. So you may know a person's past and even future. And you may recognize your own past and own past lives. So that is, but the knowledge of mental contaminants that have been permanently destroyed is an aspect of a Buddha. It's called extinction of the outflows or defilements. You no longer have any obstacles. So the crucial point traditionally emphasized is that only the sixth is exclusive to an enlightened Buddha, this extinction of outflows. He's totally pacified all of his kleshas and totally maximized all of his virtues. So that knowledge brings him to the state of Buddhahood. The first five are classified as mundane. So you may have seen that in the text as mundane achievements or mundane powers, attainable by anyone, Buddhist or not, who masters the four dhyanas or jhanas through concentration alone. And they do nothing by themselves to eliminate defilements or craving. So the sixth is super mundane, attained through penetrating insight rather than concentration alone. And it is this, not the magical powers that we talked about, that actually constitute liberation. This is why the canonical text and later Kagyu masters consistently warn against seeking or displaying the first five as an end in themselves. They are possible by a byproduct of samadhi, your deep meditative experience, not evidence of realization, and can become a source of spiritual pride or distraction from the path. So it's frowned upon to really manifest those things, or to think that you've attained a high level because you have certain powers such as this. And this you'll find more native to Kagyu practice, the distinction between common cities, the same magical psychic accomplishment that we talked about, prized in the Mahasiddha literature as signs of meditative mastery, and the supreme city, which is full Buddhahood itself. So the common cities can arise along the way and are sometimes displayed by realized masters, as in the many miracles, of Milarepa, but they are not treated as the goal. You're not trying to manifest these cities. The supreme city is awakening, is what generally defines supernormal power. For a fully enlightened being, since it is the one power that cannot be gained by mundane concentration practices alone. Is that clear?
So Lama, when I think it was Bokhar Rinpoche is talking about one of the 21 Taras and having the super normal powers and realization of the nature of the mind. So is that in that particular Tara's perspective, is that just another way of benefiting beings as an emanation of Tara?
They are enlightened. These are enlightened beings, and you can trust them, count on them, and go to them. Yeah. That's the again, that is the power of the highest level of realization, and Tara has that.
So in the hands of a Buddha, these are skillful tools, but in the hands of a non-realized being, it's kind of showing off.
Yeah, it can just further your ego attachment. Yeah, look how good I am. So that is the thing that it can be a real burden and handicap.
And there was in the chat, like Jesus walking on water. Is that like an example or a demonstration of a city?
That is a city, absolutely. Yeah. But we would consider that actually, not a person can do that who's not a full Buddha. That is the true realization of the Buddha is the complete, and it could be Jesus himself. I'm not saying he wasn't a Buddha. He could very well have done that, but just the example of walking on water is not does not say that you're a Buddha and have the highest realization. It is one of those miracles, or the first thing that we had talked about, that higher magical powers like walking on water. But it does not necessarily mean Buddhahood.
And we have another question.
Lamala, we're in chapter 12 of Amrita of Eloquence, and it's quite a bit about the devotion to the Guru. And one of our Sangha members had a lot of questions about this. We're kind of hoping that he'd be here. He's our question guy.
Yeah.
But there's statements like from the All-Inclusive Wisdom Assembly, the merit of recollecting the Guru is infinite, greater than that of meditating on 100,000 deities for 100,000 kalpas. So it's talking about devotion to the Gurus. It's better than statues. It's better than offerings. It's better than all these other things. And for Westerners, that has a very cult-like appearance to it, was the statement that came out. So when we're reading through this, it's all these wonderful things about having such great devotion to your guru, and it talks about it being, infinitely better than doing anything else.
Yes.
Better
Yes.
than practice, better than meditation, better than anything.
That's what it says, and that's what the Buddha said as well, because he is the essence of the Vajradhara will say he's the center of our lineage tree, and manifests as the supreme wisdom of the enlightened mind. And until you have that kind of connection or have that kind of faith and devotion, it says if you think of your guru as a common person, you get the common blessing. If you think of him as a supreme being, you think you get the supreme benefit. If you think of him as a Buddha, you get a Buddha's blessing. So it is like that. And again, we're meditating with our mind, and you have to understand that you are the same as that, actually. And when you do Guru Yoga, you blend or merge the Guru into yourself and become the same, like water into water. And if you don't have that connection, if you don't have that understanding, you won't have that result.
So Lama, for beginning students, is it okay to see the guru as just the teacher? And
Yes.
Especially for more skeptical people that have a difficult time connecting.
You want to understand that skepticism is a huge fault and a big deterrent to your progress on the path. Hopefully, when you continue, that's why we do Nundro. That's why we do, first of all, the devotion, and then we do the removing our obstacles and confession, and then we cultivate merit through the mandala practice, and then we do guru yoga, yoking our mind to the guru. And if those preliminary practices are done correctly and sufficiently and intensely, that is the result. That's why we call them preliminaries. So a person can't get to stage 4 of guru yoga without some preliminary, practices. That's why we call the Nundro a foundation practice. I mean, and you may think that, it doesn't matter, but if you have that view, it is a limitation. That's why our practice, coming to the center, hearing the teachings, gradually unwind our preconceptions and, Westerners in particular, we have a lot of cults. There are a lot of so-called gurus who have misused that power and have not benefited their students. In fact, have corrupted them. So you have to be careful in who you call a guru, in who you study with. So it's important to do your due diligence when you're looking for a guru, and before you decide that, okay, I can trust this person and devote myself to it. That is the beginning. Other than that, it's no different than any teacher that you've gone to, you've had in school that, okay, it's a wise person. I can learn my mathematics. I can learn art. I can use music, but this isn't the supreme city of enlightenment.
So you're not gonna make us into a cult, are you?
Well, it would be foolish for anyone following. For the get-go. So.
Do your due diligence.
Sip realization, sip.
The supreme city is awakening, is what generally defines the supernormal power for a fully enlightened being, since it is the one power, freedom from outflows, we were saying, that cannot be gained by mundane concentration practice alone. You have completely purified your kleshas, and you are not attached to mundane life, and you have completely manifested the virtues. We talk about the six virtues, paramitas, that the bodhisattvas practice. Perfect virtue. They have completed that, and as a result of that purification, the natural wisdom of their Buddha nature arises untainted, unobstructed. It is who you are. It's natural. It will come as soon as we get rid of those things that prevent it.
Go ahead.
So my two questions, I guess, how does one start to begin to understand Buddhism and like start their path to it? If that makes sense, as ironic as it is to say this right now. And then, what do you think compels someone to do it?
You've already done it. By being in that seat where you are, you have started. There was something internal that said, well, there is something here. And you read, you contemplate, and you practice. So as you do that, your kleshas will come up. You'll see them as empty, just aspects of a mind that's deluded and attached. And your life will be happier. Your progress will be swift. And you're already on the path. But now you have to, I always say there's two faults as a student of Buddhism. The first is not starting, and the second is not finishing. So you've started. And you ask, where do we start? Right here, right now, listening to this Dharma talk and the other Dharma talks that you've listened to in the past, reading the text of the masters and listening to the teachings, really contemplating those teachings and putting them into practice. And then you see, is this true or not? You have the direct experience of its truth. You don't need to be told anymore. The end product is no more meditation. You see reality as it is. Meditation is a tool. It's not an end result. It's a skillful means. You're already perfect. You already have Buddha nature that's uncorrupted, unstained, but we haven't seen it yet. We haven't really realized it yet, and we certainly haven't rested in that Buddha nature of ours. But that is what we will do. And when that happens, you will have the direct experience of the nature of your mind, clear, unadulterated awareness.
Yeah, go ahead.
In the day-to-day, there's a lot of doing happening, and how can we move from from meditation to contemplation to be more of a being while doing?
Why do it?
How do we allow ourselves into more being instead of doing in day-to-day life?
Well, the word meditation in Tibetan is gom, becoming familiar with. So once we become familiar with our mind, whether it's on the cushion or in our day-to-day life, and really where the rubber meets the road is in our day-to-day relationships with the people we work with, our family, all those people, especially those who cause us some consternation and angry. Some people really we don't get along with. Those are our greatest teachers, and so we cultivate virtue through equanimity and maintain our peace of mind, seeing the illusory aspect of this dreamlike quality. Just like in a dream, you may be interacting with a variety of people, some you like, some you don't like, but it is a dream. And you have the capacity to be any way you want in that dream, but we have habitual patterns that tend to push us in a particular direction. Some of them are towards virtue, some of them are towards our suffering, our ignorance. So we have to be discriminating on which of those is most useful to us. Is our anger useful? And you can contemplate that. It's like drinking poison and thinking that you're going to hurt someone else by drinking poison, or the other in the scriptures, it says like holding a hot coal and thinking that you're going to hurt somebody with this. All you do is hurt yourself. That's why we call them a poison. These anger in particular can really devastate your mind stream, and you carry these negative emotions. But ignorance is the primary one, not understanding who you are, not understanding the truth of your Buddha nature. Once you understand that, you can clarify it. You can work with it in a very positive way. And all those things that take you away from that Buddha nature, the negative aspects of our jealousy and our pride and our anger and our greed, all those things we see as just clouds in a spacious sky. They have their arising and then they just dissolve into emptiness, just like in a dream. They are short-lived, but we can really energize them and create great sorrow for ourselves, great suffering for ourselves and others. So it's a choice. It's a choice that we make every day, every moment, actually, when we're interacting with people or in our own mind, just looking at what is in your mind stream. What are you thinking right now? So what makes karma is the thought, engaging in the action and carrying it to its fruition, and the intention behind it. So we're creating karma all the time. The good karma is going to lead to virtue and happiness for ourselves now and in the future. The negative karma is going to cause suffering for ourselves now and in the future. We've gone, since beginningless time, you have to understand karma. And we have been moving through these different six different realms since beginningless time. We have the good fortune of being born human at this time, where we can actually realize the nature of our mind. It's hard for a hell being to do that. It's hard for an animal to do that. They don't have the reflection or the capacity for concentration as we do. But if we throw this away, this opportunity, which being born human is considered a great opportunity to use this now while we have all of the conditions necessary to become a Buddha, then that would be a waste. Once we come to that conclusion, then we take action, just like anything else. So in your day-to-day life, you have choices to make. Are you equanimity or negative emotions?
So mindfulness in everyday things.
Mindfulness in everyday things, exactly.
Yeah. If you're eating a meal, you could be just shoving down the meal. That's doing. Being would be turning off the phone, sitting in silence, tasting the food, experiencing the food, washing dishes. You're only washing the one dish. The other ones haven't been washed yet. The others are in the drain board. Your focus is just on that one thing. So you're not doing. being mindful. So that's a good way of
Being present. It's being present in the perfection of this moment and not projecting into the future with all of our thoughts and fears and what ifs, or reflecting on the past with regret and remorse and I should have done it this way or that way. That does you no good. You can't change the past and the future's not here. And whatever you think it's going to be, it's not going to be that. Just be in the present with the breath, with washing the dishes, with eating. That is a good way to begin to tame your mind. And things are going to come through your mind. You're going to have all kinds of thoughts and feelings and emotions, and you get to view them with a certain detachment. And mantra is important. We're going to be talking about the 6-syllable mantra of Chenrezig, and that as a skillful means when we get into a condition of emotional upheaval to use that as a focal point. Om Mani Padme Hum. And that will immediately change the vibration. It brings you back to a real energetic position of calm, serenity, peace. But again, you have, just like meditation, you have to become familiar with it. So once you put yourself in that situation with the mantra, you can be present. In the beginning, you do need some practice. It's just like anything else. If you're going to be a concert pianist, it doesn't happen overnight. If you're going to be a Buddha, that doesn't happen overnight either. But you do have to have confidence, that you have that capacity, and you do. We all sentient beings have Buddha nature, which is what the Buddha taught us, and why we can attain Buddhahood is because we have the seed of Buddhahood within us, but we've ignored it since beginningless time. Now it's time to do the things necessary to bring it to fruition and to rest in its natural state, the state of clear awareness, lucid clarity of the nature of our mind. Things that happen outside, of us, we say, oh, that made me angry. No, that didn't make you angry. You made you angry by your perceptions, by your reaction, by the karmic conditions that came to fruition. And you have a choice in that. No one can upset your equilibrium but you. What do you think? You think that's true or no?
I think it is.
You think it is? Yeah, me too.
It's very interesting how the more you practice, the more things like anger seem like foreign objects when you see other people embrace them. It's just like you become almost inquisitive, like why embrace that thing, that emotion.
That is the bodhisattva attitude. You see the person suffering like that is self-imposed. And exactly, why are you doing that? You're creating more karma for yourself, and you're going to suffer even more with that emotion. It makes no sense to the bodhisattva. So they try to encourage the process of enlightenment through concentrated meditation and a variety of other things that we do. These are good questions. It's important that we really take a look at them.
There's a question in the chat. Quick way to shift. When negative emotions arise, observe, ask questions internally to get to the root of it, and then shift the energy, observe the breath and mantra Om Mani Padme Hum. So she's asking, is that a good way to shift your
Yes, that would be very good. Rather than stay in that cycle of negative emotion, yes, you shift it towards something that you're more aligned with, which is your Buddha nature. That's your true nature. Anything that takes you away from your true nature, I've said this before, Buddhism, Tibetan doesn't even have a word for sin, but anything that takes you away from your Buddha nature, we would say is the way we think of sin, something that's destructive and something that's harmful against our Buddha nature. That is something we want to uproot, become aware of, and transmute it. Because it's only going to create more suffering for us. Once we understand that, as you said, Mike, so hopefully that's with your own anger too. When it arises, you say, oh, this is really not useful. I'm not going to go there. Just as when you see it in someone else, sometimes it's easier to see it in someone else than it is in ourselves. When that arises, we want to see it immediately.
Yes, definitely.
But
Good.
that is a good display, so we can learn from other people's and it will cause suffering. You see, they get red in the face, and they look terrible because they're so angry. Their face gets all distorted. Their blood pressure goes up. They're just a mess. So that's not something we want to do.
We have another question.
Yeah.
Two. So talking about like the emotions, are these, I guess the weird way I'm trying to figure it out is are these state of minds and like some in a form of energy, or are they something else when we experience them?
Well, it's when we experience them, they arise out of nowhere, really. They're empty of any essential quality. But once they arise, we give them energy. And then, yes, we can really go down that rabbit hole and express it. I mean, it leads to all kinds of things, fighting and killing. And, look at the world. So we still have control. The only thing we can control is our mind. So once we see the arising of this negative emotion, we see it as negative emotion, and we disengage from it.
So, kind of going back onto the things that you talked about being destructive, weirdly, like medicines or alcohol consumptions, tobacco, wrongful acts, are those like the sense to Buddhism or like
Only if you lose your sense of your own mind, the lay vows are nothing that disturbs your mind. So, or that you lose your mindfulness. Anything that takes you away from that mindful state is considered something to abandon. So when you're talking about drugs or alcohol or those kinds of things, we know people, when they get inebriated, they just do things that they wouldn't ordinarily do. Harmful things or all kinds of things. So it is that they've lost their mind. Literally, they've lost their mind, their mindfulness, their connection, and they just act spontaneously and just follow that emotion without being mindful. So when you lose that mindfulness, that is a problem. We hear a lot about mindfulness, but it is important. It is important. And the sooner you see it, and I mean, we have these habitual patterns, we call them habits, whether you're an alcoholic or a drug addict or you name it, that is a habitual pattern, and it's a habit. And the more you do it, the more you want to do it. Yes, there are secondary things. I mean, we're stressed out, so we think that, getting loaded is going to, help. It does not help. It doesn't help in any way, and that's, you have to come to that realization. And when you do, you'll stop it. Until you do, you won't. You have to see the behavior. You have to see the result of that behavior. You can have to see what it's doing to your family, to those around you. And, it's not going to be virtuous, It's not going to lead to a good outcome. Does that answer your question?
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
There's a question in the chat. Are negative emotions considered illusions?
Well, there are fantasy. Yeah, we've created this situation that has brought up these negative emotions, but just like in a dream, you can have all kinds of fear and anger and jealousy and pride and all kinds of things that arise in dreams, but they are empty. They just have their moment of arising and then they just dissolve back into emptiness. We have to see this world as dreamlike. So when they arise, it's like a dream. And we have a choice. We can continue to engage in that and feed it and grow it. I mean, we have to see, what we're feeding. Are we feeding the negative emotion, or are we feeding the virtue of forgiveness and compassion and loving kindness? Or is it hatred and competition and the kinds of things that you don't have to look far to see in our world? Wars and corruption and greed, and you can see what it does. The world is telling us, how to live, but we don't see it. We just take it for granted. That's how people are, and people will say that, that's just how I am. No, that's not how you are. You have become that because of the habits that you've created. We have to take responsibility. That is very important. No one can change it but us. It won't come from outside. And you can't look for your Buddha nature outside. You can't look to anything outside for relief. That's why we take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Noble Sangha, because those are the things that are worth taking refuge in. If you're taking refuge in anything besides that, it's going to let you down. It's impermanent. It won't last. So yeah, we were talking about the foundational Vajrayana texts on how a disciple should investigate, then relate to a guru. And it's explicit that a disciple must carefully examine a prospective guru's qualities before committing. Since all the Buddhas of the past, present, and future have paid homage to their tantric masters, from whom they have received the highest empowerments. This is certainly true in our Kagyu lineage as well. And one more piece that rounds out this question is the Buddhas didn't just downplay, those first higher knowledges, philosophically. They made a formal Vinaya, the rules that monks follow, for example, against monastics displaying these powers indiscriminately. So it's not something to aspire to or show off with, and it's prohibited monks from ever displaying psychic powers to householders, for example. That's pretty concrete, citable, and part of the canonical anchor for the point that we made earlier, that these powers were never meant to be used for status or a spectacle, only if it is beneficial for someone. So liberation, awakening itself remains the only power actually worth pursuing, not the cities. The cities will come as you progress along the path. You're not practicing cities. You're practicing a way to awaken the highest level of realization. And the things we're talking about is the way you do that, through taming your mind. And shamatha is the first kind of way we do that. Shamatha, or tranquility meditation. There's a sequence. It's a graduated path. So we start with taming our mind. Our mind is so wild, it just jumps from thing to thing. We talk about monkey mind. So that is what we're taming. First, we have to control this mind, or it'll just take you down the garden path to one thing after another. So until you've tamed your mind, you're just going to get pushed and pulled. In my book, I talk about training a puppy. So that is an example that when you tell the puppy to sit, does it sit? When you're first starting, not so much. It's going to run off at the earliest, or at the first little catalyst, that squirrel running or going, whatever it's attracted to. And our minds are the same way. It just runs after this, that, and the next thing. So we tame it, and we sit and watch its play with total disinterest. And until we're able to do that, our minds are just going to get pushed and pulled by every little thing. That is what shamatha is for. And once we have established that, and we say stay, and the mind stays, then we've got something to work with. Then we can go into insight meditation and ultimately Mahamudra, and rest in the mind's natural state, and rest in that samadhi, that pure, lucid awareness of the nature of our mind, undistractedly, for extended periods of time. That is the source of our wisdom. And, we said that, for example, in the guru yoga practice, the multiplicity of one's gurus is resolved through the visualization of one's teachers altogether, with the yidams for whom one has received empowerments. If it's Chenrezi, we imagine our gurus as Chenrezi or as Vajradhara, if you're doing the Nundra practice. And they're visualized as manifestations of a single figure, often Vajradhara, that manifests that pure awareness of the Buddha mind, the nature of our own mind, which is the same as Chenrezi's. It's the same as all of the deity, the yidams that we practice, Tara, medicine Buddha. That is your mind. All these different aspects that we see in Tara or Manjushri or all these, that's your own mind. But we use certain practices to cultivate certain virtues, which we already have. We're just waking it up. That's why we call it awakening. It's dormant. It's asleep at the moment. But we're waking it up. We're seeing how we distract ourselves. We distract ourselves so much, whether it's scrolling on our phones or watching movies or all the different things, from a Buddhist point of view, is a waste of time. And we don't have that much time. When we think about the four thoughts that turn the mind to Dharma, the first one, again, is this precious human birth. We don't want to waste it. We have the good fortune of being born human. We've come in contact with the Dharma. And now we have the opportunity to really work with it. How many people do that? This would be a very different world if people would do that. So again, those four thoughts are worth contemplating. So the question about, how do I start? Start with the four thoughts that turn the mind toward the Dharma. So that is this precious human birth. And to reflect on that, how fortunate you are to be born human. Of the six realms, this is the most precious birth to have. And the second is impermanence. We don't know how long we're going to be here. You may think that you're going to live to a ripe old age, but everyone thinks that, but not everyone achieves that. We don't know how long we have. And the third is karma. The thought that you're thinking right now will lead to a particular kind of action, and that action will either be virtuous or unskillful in some kind of way and lead to more unskillful actions, or it'll lead to more virtuous actions. It's our choice. And so we have to realize that these are karmic seeds that we're planting. And the fourth is the unsatisfactoriness of living an ignorant life, and not really using the tools that the Buddha gave us to realize the truth of our Buddha nature and ultimately our own awakening. It's there for us, but we have to turn our mind towards it, not away from it. And all these practices are for that. It's the skillful means. The Buddha was quite a master at giving us all the tools we need. He taught 84,000 different ways to appeal to all the different minds and all of the different kleshas that we can manifest and have manifested since beginningless time, to uproot them and to turn them into wisdom and ultimately virtue and our awakening. This is not a hypothetical. We have that capacity.
Lama, can you repeat the fourth one?
It's the unsatisfactoriness of living a life that doesn't recognize our Buddha nature. And we embrace samsara. We think that this life is so good. Samsara is nothing but suffering. And until you realize that, it's an obstacle. Everything is impermanent. You may want the particular relationship, you get the relationship, and all meeting ends in parting, as the Buddha says, one way or another. Maybe it's death, maybe it's separation, maybe it's divorce, maybe it's all kinds of ways can lead to that separation. You think you get the job and then you get laid off. You get the new car and then it gets wrecked. You have a good meal and you keep on eating and then you get sick. That will not give you what you need to realize your Buddha nature. What we're talking about will. So whether it's attraction or aversion, those things that push and pull you so dramatically and so intensely are the things that come through your mind stream that we get an opportunity to look at. And the good news is we can change. But we have to understand why we might want to do that. The Buddha said he was here for one reason only, and that's to end our suffering. And by seeing clearly what causes that suffering and having the means to uproot it also leads to our liberation. It is a graduated path. It doesn't happen overnight, as I said, but it starts with taming our mind. We have to look at our mind and all of the things that push and pull us. Any comment or question about that? Do you agree with that, or do you think that is extreme or not true?
I think I found the gold in the ore.
I think it's getting harder and harder for especially in the West, for the common person to be able to achieve that, as it seems to get further and further away, with us being more swept up in the most meaningless things, whether it's our job, relationships, not saying they're meaningless, but just a bunch of little obstacles that just keep building up, that I don't necessarily know if they were there 50, 100 years ago.
Oh, they were. They were. But we're getting a darker time where the Buddha's teaching is becoming less and less available, and people are not addressing it or using it or really studying it and practicing it. This is a Kali Yuga. It's our mind hasn't changed. It is the same now as it was. I mean, there were always wars. There was always all of these negative emotions. People killed each other from day one. I mean, I think the first humans, the brothers killed each other. It is a situation that affects our mind, and we have the opportunity to see it clearly and to avoid it. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's easy. But once we see the truth in it, and we see what our capacity is and who we are, the problem is we don't know who we are. We're Buddhists. We are Buddhists. And when we do the Guru Yoga, for example, we see ourselves in that way as Chenrezi, when you do a Yidam practice, as Tara, as Vajradhara. And until you identify yourself like that, things can go south in a hurry.
What I found resonated was the trap of spiritual ego, because with letting go and more meditation, it does appear like the mind, as we let go, we are floating above the mundanity of life. But then the trap of us getting away from the oneness and feeling superior easily can come to haunt us.
Yes, right. That's just, and you can use that as, yeah, that's exactly true. You can use anything to aggrandize and strengthen and make your ego more concrete. Oh, what a good practitioner I am. I meditated for 20 minutes today. I must be a Buddha. You're absolutely right. This is the world we live in. That's why it's so difficult. And that's why we say we take refuge in the Dharma and the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, to be in where you are with Sangha members, to reinforce and to help each other as we progress along the path, is considered a jewel. So sometimes our friends are leading us away from our Buddha nature. So when one takes refuge, it is said that you need to disengage from those people who want to go out and drink or lead you into different kinds of situations that are not virtuous. And in the beginning, in particular, because we really have not been grounded in this practice, so we really have to be discriminating on what we listen to, who we're with, and all those different things that it can lead us in the opposite direction. And it's hard, We have our group of friends. Some of them are helpful, particularly if they're in the Dharma. And hopefully you will again be practicing with people who are like-minded in that regard, and will help each other. That is what the Sangha is. It's a community, and that community is very important. It is a jewel. The Buddha said it is the most important. The Buddha's not here anymore. We have his teaching, the Dharma, but we have our teachers, we have our lamas, our rinpoches, and khenpos who teach the Dharma. And if we listen to that teaching and we practice that teaching, we will be transmuted into a whole different way of seeing.
Another trap I tend to see in this, let's say, Western spirituality is let's say the tantric or the sexual energy. Let's put it that way. How would you advise, the meditation, the oneness, the knowing alignment with truth, whether something is aligned or not?
Yeah, aligned with
the Dharma.
Well, you have to be discriminating. You have to be discriminating. Is it leading you towards waking up, or is it leading you towards things that are creating negative emotions? And if it is negative emotions, they're not creating that, you are. And ultimately, you should be able to be with anybody, and you are unmoved. You're like a mountain, stable and immovable in your realization. But until that time comes, we are very vulnerable. The things that we see on television, the advertising, all these things, everything is reaching out to you, grabbing you, and saying, "You should, if you want to be happy, you just need to have this watch, or this car, or this situation." Um, that is that's the world we live in. But you have to see beyond that. Uh, it's false. That you don't want to take um, your refuge in that. It will disappoint you.
It does become tricky sometimes if you have a lifelong partner, and you grow spiritually, and you see the struggle of, you said them staying in anger. And yes, they are teachers, they still are teachers, while you see them in anger and in feelings of guilt. How how long to kind of stay in that space and try to navigate it? How much stillness? Or is it a question of staying in stillness?
Yes, well, that takes practice to be unmoved by it. Usually we have a knee-jerk response. We meet anger with anger, usually, and not compassion. When someone is expressing anger to you, as we were talking about earlier, Mike said, oh, those poor people that are in this state of anger, I wish they wouldn't do that. And there are practices like Tonglen, where we exchange ourselves for others. So we take their anger and we give them our compassion, loving kindness, health, healing, and transform and try to bring that, at least in our own mind stream, so that we're projecting this peace, serenity, tranquility to them in whatever way we can. We're certainly not getting into that state ourselves. But there isn't a resonance, when you're, we say contact high, when you're with a guru and you feel a likeness, or you feel a quality that is genuine, that you want to be like that, that is a good thing, to aspire to have those qualities of stability. But that takes time. But it takes as long as it takes. And it depends upon your capacity and your willingness to change and to root out those things that I don't have to tell you, you've experienced the consequences of those things. And we want to, say something back to somebody, or we ruminate over somebody said something to you, and then you go home and you can't sleep at night, and going over again and again. Oh, I should have said this, and what if I should have said this, and you replay that over and over again, and you reify it more and more in your mind stream, and you can make yourself miserable. There's a lot of sleepless nights you may have had doing just that. That's optional. You don't have to do it. You can bring that peace anywhere you go. You're not vulnerable to anything on the exterior. You see the truth. But that's why, we say that the bodhisattva is a spiritual warrior, undaunted and unaffected by those negative things. That's why, Manjushri, for example, demonstrates prajna, wisdom, with his sword of wisdom, that he carries, and to cut through our illusions. And we see the truth, and we don't get thrown off. We stay grounded, centered, and peaceful. It's a choice we make. But often our habitual patterns are usually like a knee-jerk response. This happens and we react. We don't respond, with generosity and with compassion and loving kindness. We respond in our habitual ways. But again, the good news is we can change that.
Lama, it's very interesting how, and this goes back to this idea of attachment, how the people that we're most attached to sometimes are the ones that we have the most difficult time truly practicing altruistic compassion with. I know my wife, my brother, these are people I love greatly, but when it comes to practicing true compassion, sometimes those are the ones that have the most difficult time practicing these values because I'm so attached to them in that manner. So
How fortunate you are to have those in your life. They're training you to respond with loving kindness and compassion. And when something happens that you respond in another way, look at that. What is it that they've triggered? What is it that usually for anger, we have to cultivate patience. We just get impatient with them, and why don't they do it my way? How come they don't do it like I do it, or whatever the thing is? They are doing the best they can under the circumstances. They have not achieved the level to be stable in that situation, so they're reactive. Doesn't mean you have to be reactive. I would say don't mirror that reactivity. Mirror calm, serenity, and tranquility. And it'll change the situation. You can aggravate the situation in your response to that. You can just add fuel to the fire. That generally doesn't work out well.
So, Lama, how about a segue to this discussion on compassion to what's happening in Gainesville on Saturday?
Yeah, the Chenrezig practice is the best practice to do it, and it's something that it's done at the center all the time. And Rinpoche taught that Om Mani Padme Hum, for example, is the complete embodiment of the enlightened awareness of all the Buddhas. So if we can use that as a catalyst in our practice, and he says it's the heart of the 5 families of awakening. We say there's 5 Buddha families. Each of us, each of the 6 syllables stands alone as a pith instruction. And we will be talking about that this weekend, about the power of that particular mantra. It is the root of all spiritual attainments, including all of the forms of benefit and happiness. So knowing that is the key. It is a jewel that we don't want to throw away. It is something for us to cultivate and not forget. So the teaching point is that this is not a minor supplementary prayer. It is presented as a complete path in miniature form, suitable as a core, ongoing practice, rather than a stepping stone to something else. It is in itself a vehicle to enlightenment. That's what Khenpo Rinpoche said. So for students beginning or deepening this practice, his instructions can be organized around 4 core points. Why we practice, how to read the deity's form, the correct motivation. Motivation is very important. And how to focus the mind during the recitation. We developed this idea of bodhicitta, loving kindness, and that is the vehicle for expression. Chenrezig practice is the bodhisattva, has expressed the quintessential aspects of loving kindness and compassion. And that's who we are. And when I say we don't know who we are, you are Chenrezig. You have this capacity within you. It's just dormant. But it's always been there, untainted and unaffected by all of the negative things you have done. You can't lessen it. You can't make it greater. It is what it is. It has always been that way, but we have ignored it. When we come to realize it and bring it to fruition, we're Buddhists. And this is a very good way to do it, through the Chenrezig practice. It is the main practice that I teach here. Really, we don't do a lot of Yidam practices. It is said that you practice one and realize all of them. Chenrezig can give you everything that you want. It can give you health and well-being. It can give you wisdom. It can give you protection. It can give you everything. But you have to do it in the correct way, and you have to rely on it in times where you need it. Before you go down that rabbit hole. Yeah, it's good. It's good that I hope I know a number of you are coming to the Chenrezig practice, which is great. To learn more about that. So Chenrezig is Avalokiteshvara is the Sanskrit word for Chenrezig, but he is the bodhisattva embodying the compassion of all the Buddhas, and it holds a very unique central place in the Karmakaju tradition. And we see, excuse me, the head of our lineage, the Karmapa, as an embodiment of Chenrezig, the essence of compassion and loving kindness. So this isn't just one practice among many, but as the deity through which, or whom the lineage understands its own identity. Each successive Karmapa, beginning with Dusam Chenpa, the first Karmapa, is recognized as an emanation of Chenrezig. So the lineage holders themselves are considered living embodiments of this practice, rather than merely its transmitters. We say that the 4 arms, there's different representations of Chenrezig. We see the 4-arm Chenrezig. Sometimes there's 2-arm Chenrezig, 1,000-arm Chenrezig, red Chenrezig, Jawajamso. But there are many different forms of Chenrezig, but they all are this essence of loving kindness and compassion. And his arms, the 4-arm Chenrezig, represents love, compassion, joy, and equanimity. Oh my goodness, it's 8:30 already. Oh my. Never ceases to amaze me. I say this every time. The time goes by so fast.
We had in the chat, grateful for the reminder that this life is precious, a beautiful gift to practice, even when practice reveals what needs to be cleaned up in the mind stream.
Especially that it leads us in that direction. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Are there any final questions or comments before we do our dedication of merit? So I always end with dedication of merit. And when you do your practice at home, you should also end with the dedication of merit, that we are doing this practice for the benefit of all beings, including ourselves. Any final comments or questions? I appreciate your attention and your questions. Good questions. If not, I'll go on to the dedication of merit. So we dedicate this merit at this very moment for all the peoples of this earth and throughout the space, endless space. May not even the names, disease, famine, war, and suffering be heard. Rather, may our pure conduct, merit, wealth, and prosperity increase, and may supreme good fortune and well-being always arise in our minds. For the benefit of all sentient beings, we dedicate this merit. Thank you.
对，谢谢那么了。
Thank you. Good to be with you. And I hope to see some of you here this weekend, if you can make it.